Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Healthy, Wealthy, and Smart podcast. I am your host, Karen Litzy, owner of Karen Litzy Physical Therapy, located in New York City. And today we are going to have a talk about financial education, specifically for healthcare providers, and maybe even more specifically for physios. We'll see how it goes. I'm really happy to have on the program Robin Valadares. He is a seasoned physiotherapist with over 13 years of experience, blending his expertise in physical health with a passion for financial education. As the founder of Financially Fulfilled Physio, Robin empowers healthcare professionals to build wealth and financial security without compromising their personal well-being. With a unique perspective shaped by his own entrepreneurial journey, with the goal of retiring in a couple of years, Robin is dedicated to helping others achieve balance and fulfillment in their careers and personal lives. And we also have one more thing in common, and that's Jane. But we'll talk about that later. So, Robin, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much, Karen. Thanks for the warm introduction. That's correct for both Jane. I'll leave to later to discuss.
Yes, we're both with Jane. And people, this episode is probably sponsored by Jane, so we'll just leave it at that. So they people who listen to the podcast know my love for Jane. So welcome to the podcast. Now, before we get started, can you give a little bit more about your background, how you started, why you chose physiotherapy, and what led you to want to learn more about your finances?
Yeah, great question. I'll take you back to like my high school degree, and then I was figuring out what to do with my life. And I had an older brother, and we are very much an immigrant family in north of the border here in Canada. And my parents said, "Robin, you can do one of three things: become a lawyer, doctor, and engineer." And my older brother pursued the engineering degree, so it left me two other options. And I said, "Okay, I'll try to become a doctor." So I went to school to do my pre-med, and realized I didn't care much for some of the curriculum. So then I transferred over to kin, and then graduated the kin degree. I was like, oh, awesome. Mom said to me, Robin, that's not enough initials after your name. Produce or pursue something else. So I chose physiotherapy because I got banged up a lot in sports as an adolescent. A couple knee surgeries, so I was in and out of the physiotherapy or physical therapist office often. And I realized, hey, I have a knack for this. I like this. It's anatomy based. I can help people. It's rewarding. Flexibility of time. Great. So pursued that and graduated about 13 years ago, and then have been practicing in orthopedics the last decade and a bit. And then the pandemic hit, as we know, and certain lockdowns or procedures didn't allow us to practice like we normally would for a period of time. And I was in that position, unfortunately, but gave me the ability to kind of reflect in my adult life, saying, "Hey, I got 3 months off. What can I do to better myself?" And at this point, I knew I struggled with money growing up. Never really taught it in high school, undergrad, postgrad. But your first decade of life in your 20s is probably the most expensive, if not your 30s, where you get a new job, you might buy a house, you might get married, you might buy a car, you might have a kid. These are all expensive things, but money's never brought up anywhere. So I decided in 2020, it's like, okay, I love this stuff, but I don't understand it. Let's learn about it. And let's teach my fellow practitioners, anybody who kind of works in a clinic, what money is and how to use it as a self-employed individual.
And so, as you were going through this journey of learning more about financial aspects of certainly being a physiotherapist and just in life, was there was there anything that you found, even from a money mindset uh, basis and overcoming limited beliefs? Could you share maybe a personal example of a limited belief you had to overcome, and how that might have transformed your financial journey?
I love this question because we know as therapists, your outlook is directly related to your outcome. Those who are positive in terms of their outlook tend to do better or likely to progress is higher than those who are kind of negative in rehab. Same thing with money mindset. And for me is kind of getting over that imposter syndrome. You still might be practicing for your second decade as a therapist, but you still might have that inkling in the back of your head saying, are you worthy? Are you good enough? Can you do this? I had it in physiotherapy and still do. And I definitely had it with personal finance. I'm someone who's never got a degree in this information. I've learned it myself, trial and error, lost thousands of dollars. And each time I give a talk or a lecture, I still feel like I'm not equipped traditionally to give that. But I've gone through the hard knocks to understand what I know, my competency, and what I don't know. And for what I don't know, I find people to help me. For what I know, I try to explain that. So I still deal with it. It's just how you position yourself.
And how did that relate to your financial journey?
Um, I I think it's a gift because I think people who are experts tend to lay out the brakes in terms of consuming new knowledge. I knew I was an amateur in the field. I was totally brand new. So that really taught me to seek out education so I could learn for myself, to keep bettering myself that way. And in that pursuit, you're going to make a ton of mistakes. You're going
Mhm.
to waste a lot of time. You're going to lose thousands of dollars, but that's tuition in your education. So if I framed it that way, not as a cost, but a tuition that preceded more and more education.
Yeah. And, as we look back, hindsight's always 50-50, right? So, what are maybe two or three things that you wish you knew earlier in your financial journey? And can you explain how they might specifically benefit physiotherapists or other healthcare professionals?
Excellent. Yes. I wish I would have started budgeting earlier. I
Mm,
kind of pushed it off because maybe I was living with my parents and I said, hey, this isn't the real world. What's the point of budgeting? But at that point, I could have forecasted what it would be like to pay rent, drive a car, food and utilities. I could forecast that. That's generally available knowledge. And based on my income and my expenses, I would have some sort of plan. So when I do enter that life stage, I can allocate my funds appropriately. Then I wish I would have started investing or at least learning how to invest, whether that's putting in a GIC, whether that's putting in a stock or a bond or some sort of mutual fund, knowing what those terms are and putting something or paying myself first early on, because the power of compound interest is a formidable force. So if you understand that and use that to your advantage, especially when you're young, you'll see the dividends, pun intended, later on. The last thing I think I would have done is pay for that 10,000 hours of experience from mentors around me. I'm that type of person is I find a problem, I want to try to solve it myself, but is that the best use of my time? What is that return on time? Can I find someone who's done it before that I don't mind paying for or getting some education? And that saves me X amount of hours. If I changed my mindset and found those people earlier on, maybe I wouldn't have struggled so much developing the business earlier on.
right. Sometimes we have to get out of our own way, right?
You're dead right. And as type A personalities, you're stuck sometimes in your own way.
Yeah, because you're like, I can figure this out. I can do it. I have been, and then, you know, days go by, hours, days, weeks, whatever it is, when you could have reached out to someone and who has been there before and guided you on that path. So I totally get that from a financial standpoint and even as physiotherapists, right? Like what's
Dead on.
one of the most important things you need when you first start is a really good mentor.
Correct.
So I assume it's the same when we're learning about our finances.
Absolutely. And it's not rocket science because if people, thousands of people have gone before us, just take advice from people you want to switch places with. And sometimes we take advice from people that we don't want to switch places with, and that drops us down a slippery slope, shall we say.
Totally. And now, a lot of people that listen to this podcast are entrepreneurs. They might be physical therapy practice owners or healthcare practice owners. So, how does your practice management finances, how does that weave in even to your personal finances? So could you first talk a bit about practice management finances and why it's important? This may seem crazy, but why is it important as a business owner to either you be on top of it or have people around you who are?
Great question. And I think we get into a dicey situation when you don't have a firm personal finance background and you open up a business because sometimes the business will suffer because your poor ways personally will transfer into your business. So when it comes to practice management and whether that's your main revenue stream is understand, I think the key variable here, Karen, is understanding your return on time in that business and setting up the processes or the systems of the people around you to maximize that return on time. And it doesn't have to be monetary. It could be spiritual. It could be in terms of a lifestyle factor. It could be a relationship building. Just give you the ability to use the best use of your time that is designed for and having the team or people around you to support you. And I think that's where we can talk about like software that really helps free up your time or getting you aligned with the right people. So then you can really truly focus on the business, working on it versus in it. And then you know you have a nice personal financial cushion to allow you those opportunities to pursue.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned some software because my next question was going to be, can you give some examples of how, as a business owner, you can save, whether it's some time, some money, some frustration, some aggravation? How can you save on that to help you run the business versus be in the business? Because we've all been there, and there are also a lot of people who are solopreneurs, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes you have to wear all the hats. So what are some things that you can some action items, some things that we can go out and be like, oh my gosh, I love that. I'm going to start doing it tomorrow.
Great. And it's like those friction-based items that you push off and don't want to tackle or just have so much fear around. And whether that's using a software like Jane that makes your charting and your booking and everything else seamless, which I can't talk highly enough. But then you have other things that you might not even think about, things that make your accountant's life easier, your bookkeeper's life easier, or your own travel logging life easier. There is software out there, whether that can you take a picture of your receipt, it auto populates to a data fetching piece of software that reconciles with your actual accounting software. So your accountant you can go in, you can reconcile and save that. That's done in seconds versus manual bookkeeping or using your receipts in a shoebox to give to your accountant at the end of the year. And then you have apps on your phone that track where you are with respect to your drives, and you can auto classify if you're driving to this person's house or that person's house. Is it a business? Is it personal? And then auto populates for you. And it's also verifiable. So those are the tools I use on a routine basis to take away those $10 tasks, those friction items, and
Mm-hmm.
move them to something that's quite easy for me to manage.
And what are they? Can
Well,
you
I'm
mention
happy.
them?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mile IQ is a software I use on my phone to track my driving distance and my driving locations. It remembers where you're going and auto populates. You can set up an actual work calendar. So anytime from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., it knows you're working and where you go is based on work. So it's neat that way. Then there's HubDoc, which auto fetches all my documents, whether it's my Amex card, my banking statements, my utility bills, pulls it all digitally based on the expense. It reconciles with my accounting software called Zero. They're owned by the same company. So back and forth, those two are seamless. And anytime someone says, oh, yeah, what's that receipt? Oh, yeah, I'll just fetch it up. Here it is, PDF, send it over. Done. I don't have to go looking for it. So that just makes my life and my accountant's life a lot easier.
Sure, sure. And I started using a new accounting software. Um so instead of using QuickBooks, which for me, I mean people love QuickBooks, but for me QuickBooks always seemed like a little too much. It's very robust. I don't know if you're using QuickBooks or if you're using, oh, you said you're using Zero.
That's correct.
Yeah. Is that Xero? Zero?
At Zero, that's
Yeah.
correct. Yes.
Um, so I was using QuickBooks and I was like, oh God, this is like it was too clunky for me. So I started using a new accounting platform called cashflowy.ai,
Okay.
which is actually really cool. And they have accountants are sort of assigned to your accounts from their internal accountants. And it's AI is in the background kind of. So when it sees anything in your bank account, it knows exactly what bucket to put it in. And
Awesome.
you can teach it a little bit, just like any other AI platform, right? You teach it a little bit of who you are or how you speak.
Mhm.
It's the same idea. So that if I go in once a month, I might have to reconcile two things versus, sometimes on QuickBooks, like you're reconciling. And I was like, I don't know. I'm not an accountant. I don't know what bucket to put this stuff in. Like, this is so confusing. So here, the accountant behind the scene is very helpful. But, and again, it's like to your point on keeping on top of your finance, it's like one click, you have your P&L. One click, you have your cash flow. One click, you have your summary for the year, right? And with QuickBooks, you have to go in and like manually reconcile a lot. So
Well,
it does it for you. And it was a little bit of a learning curve in the beginning. And it was a lot of like, I literally went line by line for the entire year, which is actually quite helpful because it ended up saving me $1,700 this year. But,
good for you.
um, it's like these tools are emerging, they're out there. So I would say, like, find the platform that works best for you. I think a lot of them depends on your learning style. Like, I like simplicity, which is why I like Jane because it's super simple and easy to follow. And cash flow is kind of the same. What is Zero like? Is Zero like as robust as QuickBooks, or is it?
I think it is robust as QuickBooks, but it has the same auto reconciliation feature that you
Mm-hmm.
have based on your current or past trends. It says, "Oh yeah,
Yeah,
utilities here. Is that okay, Robin? Press OK." It's done
yeah,
that way, and
yeah.
it's also an app version, which makes my life easy when I'm not at my laptop.
Right, right. Exactly, exactly. Cool. Okay, so those are some good tools, people. So, uh, we're giving you some nice action items here that you could say, I'm at least an action could be I'm going to check these out. You don't have to sign up for anything, but you can at least check them out, right?
Absolutely. Just
So
just learn about them.
yeah, just learn. Okay. So where were we? Oh yeah. So we're talking about practice owners, right? And how to kind of make life a little bit easier. So are there any maybe habits that we can get into the habit of doing to make our financial life a little bit easier? Like, do you recommend looking at your looking at your QuickBooks or cash flow or your zero once a month, twice a month? How do you counsel people in gaining better habits around their financial fluency?
Yeah, great question. For me, and I'm kind of neurotic that way, every 2 weeks on a Saturday morning from 8 to 9 a.m., when I'm not golfing in the summer, I'm on the couch, usually with a cup of coffee, reconciling my accounts. I do this because I like to see where money is. My memory's not the best. So after a month, I might say, hey, where did I go to Walmart for? What was that for? And I might not remember what I used that extra receipt for. So the 2 weeks keeps me honest. And then it gives me the ability to contact my accountant pretty quickly and say, hey, I have a question about tax planning this year because of this expense. Can you help me with? So I get that kind of taken care of immediately. That's me. And then I check my net worth maybe once a month that respect to see, hey, I'm on the right trajectory because my goal is to hit certain milestones in certain time frames. And for me, the more often I check, as long as it's reasonable, which I think once a month is, it keeps me on that trajectory versus kind of being off the path and not checking back, let's say in a year's time.
Mm-hmm. These days I've been checking my net worth like once a week and watching it tumble down a hill. Although everybody says,
Oh,
don't worry, it's cyclical, it'll come back. But anyway, that's a whole other can of worms, and we won't get into that right now. But you know what I'm saying.
I
Um,
do. I feel you.
it's because this is stressful stuff, right? Because like you said, like you want to retire, we all want to retire, we want to retire with dignity, we want to be able to do that in a way where we don't have to pare back our lifestyle so much in order to retire, right?
Hmm.
So when we think about investing, um how do you and I know, like, I just want to say, like, neither one of us are financial planners here, so this is just for educational purposes only. We are not giving out strict financial advice. You should speak to your financial planner, your accountant, or anything else. So let's just put that, legalese out there. But when people talk about diversification, right? Can you just give the listeners an education around what it means to diversify your income?
Yeah, this is a great question because it could be amongst revenue streams, and that could be I can work at three different clinics. Okay, that's diversifying between
Mm-hmm.
those three clinics. It could also be between professions where I have a physiotherapy practice, but also I'm a short-term rental expert of an Airbnb, and then I'm a landlord. Okay, that's diversification of revenue streams as well. When it comes to, like, let's say tangible, or sorry, some of the stocks, bonds, ETFs, you can diversify amongst those asset classes, whether it's tech based and you're diversifying between a social media platform and a consumer product platform. Okay, that's tech based. Or is it amongst tech, agriculture, and then consumer staples? Those are diversifications as well. So between components of diversification and then what we call position sizing, meaning, hey, I could have 15 different stocks, but 14 of them only have 1% allocation to it, and the other stock has 86. Is that diversified or concentrated? Up to someone's interpretation, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it really depends. How do you want to diversify? For me, it's revenue streams for sure. As a physical therapist, you know this full well. You injure your leg, your arm, you might not be able to work. Are you going to be compensated for it? I don't know. Next question is, what's your time frame or your tenure of being a therapist manually, actively? Is it the same as our counterparts who are lawyers, accountants, engineers? No. I can
Mm-hmm.
tell you full well, if you look at the spectrum of individual in physical therapy still practicing, majority of them are going to be under the age of 40, maybe 45. There's not many of us who are practicing in our 60s unless we're a business owner. So you have to understand, okay, my time frame is shorter. How do I diversify my revenue stream? So I might live till 90, but stop practicing in 45. What's that 50-year spread like?
Yeah, that's a big spread. Um, that's a lot. Yeah. So I think just that concept of diversification is really important for people to understand and to think outside of the box. There are a lot of ways to bring in income from different places. And I think taking a look at your portfolio, especially if you have like a 401k or something like that, like it's okay to look and see where everything is allocated, and I would say to just ask a lot of questions of your financial advisor as well. Like you cannot just accept things on face value. Ask questions, and if they're not giving you good answers or they're not giving you any answers, you know you might want to look around, because if you're working with someone, they should be able to answer all of your questions all the time.
Completely agree. And you have to know what questions to ask. And this
Mm-hmm.
jargon, just like our anatomy jargon, what's a medial, what's lateral, the layperson doesn't understand, so they get confused and they don't ask the correct questions. Same with us. Some people don't know what an ETF is, what an annuity is, so we don't ask the questions. Therefore, poor questions, poor results. So if you understand some of the basic jargon and it's easy to do, you've got to apply yourself to learn it, then you can ask the kind of appropriate questions to make sure you have a good decision with that advisor that you trust your 20, 30, 40 years of working life with.
Right, right. And what are, if you can share, knowing that everyone is in a different situation and has different investments, but what are some common questions that one can ask of their financial advisor?
I love Lee. Sometimes it's how long they've been in the business. You want to understand that they have the same sort of experience that you'd expect. Maybe not someone who is a brand new grad, nor someone who's maybe 50, 60 years in, because the times they learned how to invest might be different than current times. Then the philosophy of their approach. Are they a long-term investor? Are they more kind of volatile based on their risk profile or risk appetite? What's their past performance like? Obviously, past performance isn't indicative of future results, but it gives you some sort of basis as to how they've done with certain economic hardships. Maybe you don't want an advisor who's never gone through a downturn before, because you might be going through a downturn. You want to see how they've reacted during that downturn. And then you might ask them about, hey, what's in their portfolio? If they're recommending a certain asset class or a basket of stocks or bonds, ETFs to you, make sure they have some sort of skin in the game. And then lastly, I think understanding what the inherent costs of this relationship is like. What are the fees associated? Is there
Right.
alignment that if I do well, you do well, and if I do poorly, do you do poorly, or do you get paid regardless? Those are some 4 or 5 questions I would ask.
Yeah, those are great questions. And, I find that there are always like these fees that you're like, wait a second, where did this come from? Or why is this fee here? Or what's going on here? And, sometimes you ask questions and if you're not getting the answers, it's really, you got to make some decisions. And it's a tough decision to make, by the way. Um, it's hard because, you're investing for your future you, right? So it's like, you need to be comfortable with the person or people who are doing that for you. So I think those are some really great questions.
Thank you.
Um, yeah. Now, as we start to wrap things up, is there anything that we missed? Anything that you're like, this is something that all the listeners need to know?
I think I stumbled on earlier, especially for our healthcare professionals, our tenure of being a professional might not be as long as our counterparts. And
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes we push off the thought of retirement later because we think it's quite daunting or overwhelming, and we hope it works out in the end. Hope is not a plan. We work in a unique industry where we innately trade our time for money. We don't work typically independent of our location. We have to be physically there for the most part, and we have to be physically present in that time moment to do so. If we can make them can come independent of time, that's a lovely thing. But that's where revenue streams investing comes in, where you take money when you're not physically present, and then independent of location. Imagine if you could be, let's say, on a beach and still earn an income. Wouldn't that be lovely? Absolutely. So if you understand, hey, your ability to earn is finite, you have these resources available to you, understand where your retirement is, whether it's age 40, 50, 60, what do you need to achieve that? Back that down to where you are currently and what your situation is. Set those SMART goals that we all learn about in school. So to your financial life and chip away at it. Your future self will thank you. Just do not push it off or entrust it improperly without asking the right questions.
Yeah. No, so here's a right question. How do you get on the beach and you're still making money? I think that's a really nice
Yeah,
vision.
I
How
can
do
tell
we
you a few
do
things.
that? Okay, tell me two. Tell me two ways I can do that.
one way you can do it right now, and this sounds like a scary word, is something called stock options. If you can learn the processes particularly well and what kind of strategies to use, I do it in between clients who no show or have late cancellations. Let's say I lost out on a $100 assessment that doesn't show up. If I know what I'm doing on the phone, which I think I do, I can make that $100 fee in a matter of moments based on the options I sell, independent of time for the most part and location. But that's a skill set I've learned over the last 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing is, hey, you might have dividends in your portfolio. You might have X amount of dividends that pay you on a quarterly basis. You can be in any sort of beach and have your portfolio so large that it might pay you $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month, independent of your location. There's a two
Mm-hmm.
right
Mm-hmm.
there.
Perfect. I love it. All right. Now, where can people find you if they have more questions or they want to check out some of your courses or something like that? Where can they find you?
Hey, thank you for the handoff. My name is Robin Valadares. My website's called Financially Fulfilled Physio. Don't let the alliteration fool you. I service and help anybody who's in the healthcare field, especially those self-employed individuals. You can find me on socials at Financially Fulfilled Physio, both on Instagram and LinkedIn. I'm very present there. And if you got to email me, I'm pretty responsive. 2 days around. Info@financiallyfulfilledphysio.com, and I'll get back to you.
Perfect. And regardless of where you're listening, what platform you're on, if you scroll down a little ways to the show notes, then you will get all of those resources in one click. And I also think you have a little free gift for the listeners. It's again, being as we are in uncertain times. So you talk a little bit about how to prepare for a recession guide.
Yeah, thank you. I built this for myself because I think I have to understand my own behavioral psychology when things get kind of scary. So I built this guide up for myself and said, hey, if I'm using it myself, maybe an audience would like to learn about how to kind of emotionally understand how to make decisions and how to
Mm-hmm.
prep yourself up like an emergency fund or savings account. So when things do or potentially go sideways, you're not panicking. So you can, yeah, download that
Right.
guide as well.
Right. Perfect. Well, I think that's something that we can all use right now. So thank you so much for that. And that's for all you listeners. Nice free gift for all of you. So, Robin, as we're ending, I have one question that I ask everyone, and it's knowing where you are now in your life and career. What advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
Uh, I would tell my younger self that to take action. I think I was very scared, and I believed that fear. I didn't believe that fear killed more dreams than failure ever would, and I was so scared of failing because you go to school and you're just like, I got to get 100% on grades, A plus, got to do this, or else I think I look like a failure. Not so much for myself, but for what society perceives of me. And what you have to understand is you're going to make mistakes. And the best people or the most successful people in life are those who make mistakes, learn from it, grow, iterate, and proceed. And that fear of making mistakes led to a lot of inaction. And I kind of wasted a few years where I could have grown better. But knowing now, I'd go back and say, yeah, I'd fail often, learn from it. Just don't make the same mistake twice.
Oh, I hear that one. That is great advice.
Mhm.
So, Robin, thank you so much for coming on the show. And again, everyone, that's financiallyfulfilledphysio.com. And you can get all of that info in the show notes. Robin, thanks so much.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate the opportunity.
Anytime. And everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great couple of days and stay healthy, wealthy, and smart.